And breaking tonight, Prime Minister Liz Truss has congratulated Giorgia Meloni after her victory in the Italian elections. Truss wrote on Twitter, from supporting Ukraine to addressing global economic challenges, the UK and Italy are close allies. And Italy, of course, does look set to elect Meloni now as its first ever female Prime Minister after her party, Brothers of Italy, stormed 26% of the vote. Now, Brothers of Italy, they have enjoyed a rapid rise to power after winning just 4% of the electorate in the last national election of 2018. Meloni will now lead a right-wing coalition, joining forces with the former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi's Forza Italian party and Matteo Salvini's League party. Now, Meloni's tough stance on mass immigration, the extremist trans lobby and limiting EU powers means that the mainstream media have predictably derided her as being far right. You would have heard a lot of that today if you've watched BBC or Sky News. Far right, they keep saying. However, her supporters say her policies are purely focused on putting Italy first as well as family values. For an example, here she is speaking in 2019 in a speech that has been widely lauded online in the wake of the election.
A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi, perché la famiglia è un nemico.
Why is the family an enemy? Why is the family so frightening? There is a single answer to all of these questions, because it defines us, because it is our own identity, because everything that defines us is now an enemy for those who would like us to no longer have an identity and to simply be perfect consumer slaves. And so they attack national identity, they attack religious identity, they attack gender identity, they attack family identity. I can't define myself as Italian, Christian, woman, mother. No, I must be citizen X, gender X, parent 1, parent 2. I must be a number, because when I am only a number, when I no longer have an identity or roots, then I will be the perfect slave at the mercy of financial speculators, the perfect consumer.
I mean, what an incredible speech. So where does this whole far-right thing come from? So, the criticism of Brothers of Italy is because of its links to the Italian social movement, a former neo-fascist group formed in 1946 by the supporters of the dictator Mussolini. Now, Meloni herself joined the local youth section of the Italian social movement. However, she says she has now obviously changed her views and that the party's links to fascism are, quote, consigned to history. So, to discuss this historic result, I'm joined now by our very own Neil Oliver. And Neil, it just feels so lazy and predictable to brand Meloni as far-right and then not look at all at the reasons why Brothers of Italy have had this surge of popularity. But, Neil, I know you can see why.
Well, I think name-calling has become the last best resort of those who want to shout down, silence, and remove from the field of debate those with whom they don't agree. It's playground tactics, which by definition it smacks of desperation. You know, people whose arguments have completely run out, have evaporated, they fall back on just shouting down and calling people names. And there are obvious labels that can get thrown around that if they stick can be very damaging, and far right is one of them. You know, it's up there with racist and misogynist and all sorts of other insults, accusations, allegations that you can make about people with whom you don't agree, but whose arguments you have no ammunition to challenge. And what Giorgia Meloni was saying there in that speech that's been widely circulated, only time will tell what Giorgia Meloni actually does or doesn't do. What was interesting to me was how many Italians specifically, but also Europeans and people elsewhere in the world, how much they obviously desperately wanted to hear someone say those things about family, about country and borders and mothers and fathers and about faith. And people want to hear those words said, and they want to hear those ideas celebrated because they are fundamental to the species. It transcends nations in many ways, and it transcends political ideologies. People going about their day-to-day business, they care about family, and many of them care about faith. and they care about country, and they want to know that the borders of their countries are defended, and they want to know that the sovereignty of the people is being respected. And when someone like Giorgia Meloni says it so eloquently and so forcefully, and coming from a quite ordinary background herself, it's watching the effect of those words is very, very important. And it's no less important in many ways that the instant response coming from, in inverted commas, the other side is just to throw brickbats, just to throw names, just to throw insults, because they don't have anything else. Because how do you challenge people that want to celebrate family, faith, country, sovereignty?
Yeah, well, the thing is, Neil, we've been looking for hope, haven't we, after the past 3 years, which has been just a complete mess for so many reasons. And should we have hope, Neil, that her victory potentially means the globalists can be challenged? Those in lockstep with the World Economic Forum can be challenged, or is that getting ahead of ourselves here?
Well, it could be getting ahead. I think, as I said, we have to wait and see, because ultimately actions speak louder than words. You have to watch what people do. The words that she has, with which she has emerged into the spotlight, are very, very effective. But ultimately, what will make the difference will be what she is able to do and what she deliberately does. But I think for many people, there's been a realization that over the last few years, couple of years, what's been going on that's been coming out of blocs like the EU and from ideologues like the World Economic Forum, it feels anti-human. That a lot of the rhetoric that is coming out atomizes people. It takes away people's personal identity. It takes away people's national identity. It vilifies fundamentals like family. It vilifies notions like patriotism. These are anti-human tactics. And our species, it's 300,000 years old. And the things that our species has held dear, one way or another, even before language, for those hundreds of thousands of years, for many people, right back in a part of the brain that they can't even articulate their thoughts, these are the things that they care about. We are a human species, and we respond to people that speak up in favour of the human being. And that is what Giorgia Meloni has tapped into. And anyone who does that in the face of the technocrats, in the face of those who are pushing what feels like a digital totalitarianism, anyone that stands up and says, no, it's about people, it's about individual human beings, and it's about respecting the things that individual human beings care about, which is to say their families, their identities, their sense of where they belong, the soil in which their people have their roots. Anyone that can articulate that is potentially in a very powerful position, but ultimately it will come down to whether or not she can translate those words into actions. And if she can stand up for her people, then she will gain traction that matters, that will ripple out across the European continent.
So we watch and wait, Neil.
We have to watch and wait. Talk is pretty. Words are powerful, but we have to see what Giorgia Meloni does. And if she does what she says she's going to do, and if she properly celebrates and champions the values that she has turned a spotlight upon, then she has great potential to make change.
No, indeed, Neil Oliver, very well put. And I guess I would just say as a note, if you're watching something and they immediately brand this woman far right, just have a think about the motivation behind why they might be saying that. Neil Oliver, so great to speak to you. Thank you, Neil.